I had a body, but like nothing inside of me. It's a very hard feeling to describe, but I just felt completely empty. I had the Kundalini kind of like goddess feeling is the only way I can describe it. And I started to feel electricity in my arms. I think when you start to raise your consciousness and become more aware of the actual nature of reality, all of a sudden my chest is rising like 6 times, like off the ground, head on the ground. It was like I was having an exorcism. And at this point, I'm still logical, still not understanding energy work. And so I'm lying there and I think I was literally saying out loud, like, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on right now?
How did you go from having a massively successful $10-12 million online education business to saying, I'm going to burn all that down and start really evaluating what I'm doing in this life?
Felt like I was tied down to a train going 500 miles per hour towards spiritual awakening that I couldn't stop.
I feel so present and so at peace, but that also feels so foreign to me. Like you are safe in your body, in your environment. How have you been able to recalibrate that for yourself?
Everything that I relied on for a sense of safety, a false sense of safety, which was my identity tied to how much money I was making from an ego perspective. The woman who had this, $12 million in sales, like team of 15, doubled profitability and revenue margins every year. Like that was where I put my value as a person. And I started to meditate every day.
Hello, Miss Christina Galbato.
Hello, Miss Julie Solomon.
It's so good to be here with you.
I'm so excited to be here. I feel like you have been with me through so many different chapters of my life, my business, and it just feels like very comfortable and an honor to be sitting here with you and running through all of it.
It's going to be a good conversation. I love how we've been able to deepen our friendship and relationship over the last couple of years. Of course, we knew each other online, like most people do, for a while, but then got to just connect virtually and then meet in person, and then just over time have really just deepened this beautiful friendship. And I'm so excited for you. I'm so proud of you. We're going to be talking about a lot of good stuff today, but I want to just kick it off a little bit with, I'm sure a lot of my audience probably knows who you are. If they don't, just kind of giving them a little bit of where you started, but then most importantly, kind of, and we'll get into the details, but what's really been transpiring over the last year?
Yeah, we'll do like a high level overview. Most people from your audience probably know me from the online course space. The majority of what I've done for the last 5 years is have online courses that help social media creators build and monetize audiences on social media, on a blog, on email list. But I started actually in 2016 as a travel blogger. So that's where I sort of got my start in the influencer creator world. Started a side hustle on the side of my 9-to-5 job, working with tourism boards, hotels around the world. And then that ultimately catapulted the inspiration for my first online course, which was the Influencer Bootcamp. And I feel like we have a lot of products that are the same and names that are the same.
Names.
It's not exactly groundbreaking, Influencer Bootcamp, but that was my first course. Then I had a blogging email list course, then an online course. And now, we can kind of get into it, but 2 out of 3 of those courses I've completely retired. And that came after a lot of time of feeling just very disconnected from my purpose, confused on what excited me, confused on what kind of business I wanted to have. And now I'm entering a place of sort of rebuilding something that feels aligned. But I had to kind of burn to the ground to rebuild.
I'll kind of paint a little bit of a picture, but I want you to take us back. So I know that you have been in recovery and shared about that for how many years now?
4 years.
4 years. So being vulnerable on social media is not something that is quote unquote new to you. I know that you started sharing that and a lot of people resonated. And, from that, you moved from New York to LA, lived in LA for a year or so. Then you moved to Miami.
Yep.
And then life happened. I'm going to let you kind of fill in the blanks. But you, over the last year especially, have gone through a massive spiritual awakening and journey and just a deepening of who you are as a woman and how you want to live and lead your life. And so if you'll kind of start to fill in some of those gaps of how did you go from having a massively successful, $10-12 million online education business to saying, I'm going to burn all that down and I'm going to, really sit with myself and all of the corners of myself and start really evaluating what I'm doing in this life.
Yeah, I think I'll kind of start from, I feel like where this started like 2 years ago, and you can interrupt me if you want me to go deeper into anything. But I think we met the first time in person when this was really first starting to happen, in terms of I had had this successful business making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month from these 2 online courses, huge team. And I think I met you pretty much around the time when I was starting to feel like unaligned with my business, in terms of not really caring that much about like teaching about social media tips, like how to land brand deals. I just started to feel like, we're laughing, very disconnected from that mission, because the business I had built was very far from, I think, those original kind of teachings that I was going for. So my first initial idea when I started to feel disconnected was, I had conversations with people that were like, why don't you try to sell the business? And that had never crossed my mind before, because, both of us, like, we built this online education company under our names. And I'm like, is that even possible? And I talked to a few people that had similar companies, and what they did was essentially, pull themselves out of most of the marketing. It was fine if they were the instructor in the courses, if they did go for a sale. But that became my kind of mission, was to put all of my courses under this new business name, hopefully maintain profitability as I was pulling myself out of it. And it was very, very slow. But, looking back at that, it was never started for the right reason anyway. I started transitioning everything away from my name because I hated my business. So like immediately the intention behind it kind of told the whole story of how this was going to go, right? So all of this is happening. I like don't really care about the business anymore. All I'm seeing is like an exit sign, because I had numbers that I was happy with. Like, things were going really well initially. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what contributed to revenue going down. It could have been just like, there's been a ton of industry trends as far as like the evergreen webinar funnel. It could have been new hires that I made that contributed to things going down, or probably the most obvious would be that I didn't care and I wasn't showing up, and my audience can, feel your energy through social media. But things started to trend downward. And so I want to say I ignored it for a little bit, like 3 months, because, with evergreen and with paid marketing, things go up and down all the time. There's seasonality that impacts things. And so I was noticing it, but I wasn't like taking action on it quite yet. And then at that time also, I was in a relationship that, to put it like high level, highlighted my patterns of self-abandonment with my historical patterns, with things that were going on with him, with ways that he was. The dynamic just sort of pulled me away from myself. And it's hard for me to admit, but I just stopped caring as much about the business. And a lot of that, I think, it ties into like emotional sobriety piece and staying true to myself and staying in alignment with myself. And I was not doing a good job at that. And so, by the end of last year, the business really was tanking. My relationship ended, and I found myself in this space of like complete darkness, because it was like everything that I relied on for a sense of safety, a false sense of safety, which was my identity tied to how much money I was making from an ego perspective. Like, that's who I was, like the woman who had this, $12 million in sales, like team of 15, doubled profitability and revenue margins every year. Like, that was where I put my value as a person. And this relationship falling apart that I found so much safety in. And I also was like in a weird living situation where I didn't really have a place of my own at that point. And so I just had like, I completely broke. Like, it felt like sometimes that I had a body, but like nothing inside of me. It's a very hard feeling to describe, but I just felt completely empty, like completely broken, didn't know who I was, didn't know what I cared about. So went through a couple months of just like, or a few months of like really, really intense grief, like going to AA every day. Everybody was concerned about me, and just really had to like make it through a day at a time. I completely stopped working. And then in January, February time, I started to take a little bit of action, because it had been a few months of me just being like completely dead. And I started to meditate every day. So I started to look at like where I was at in my life in all areas, spiritually, friendships, work, every aspect of my life, where I was currently, where I wanted to be, why the gap existed. And I obviously wanted to develop more spiritually. So I was like, I'm just going to meditate every day for 10 minutes, no exceptions.
That's the answer.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
But it kind of was.
Yeah.
but it kind of freaking was. So
Because it allowed you just to quiet in a way probably that you hadn't yet.
exactly. And I knew in my gut that I couldn't distract. I think I was too broken to distract, honestly. You know, when you're like in pain and you're like, I just want to suppress, avoid, numb, date again. I was way too broken to do any of that. So I had a sense that I did need to go inward this time. So meditation for me really started, it impacted my life in such a positive way immediately in terms of like my emotional regulation during the day, my presence, my peace on a daily basis was incredible, more control over my thoughts. But then it also started, I want to say, like a curiosity in the spiritual world. Like I kind of describe it as soon as I started meditating, it felt like I was tied down to a train going 500 miles per hour towards spiritual awakening that I couldn't stop. Like all of a sudden I was so interested. All of a sudden I was ordering books. All of a sudden I was like asking gurus, finding mentor. Like it was really fast and I couldn't stop it. It was really ungrounding also, because I think when you start to raise your consciousness and become more aware of not only yourself, but of the actual nature of reality, it's hard to exist in certain ways in this reality. And I also didn't really have a lot of support, like friends that were on a similar journey or that understood. So I felt pretty alone for a lot of it.
And so I know that because I know some of your story, so I'm going to like kind of touch on some of the things that I would love for you to drop into. Yeah. So I know that you started meditating and just started kind of cultivating a deeper relationship with God, higher power, creator, your own spiritual practice in a way that you hadn't before. Yeah. And then you went to Bali. Well, you went to South Africa. You went to some places, but you went to Bali. Yeah. And what happened there?
In Bali, I still don't even 100% know because there's no way to prove these things. But from my knowledge and understanding, I had a full Kundalini awakening. I have done, and for your listeners that don't know what Kundalini is, it's essentially everybody has life force energy stored at the base of their spine, or for women, it's in your cervix actually. And everybody has that. And when you raise your consciousness, when you clear your chakras, clear your fears, clear your blocks, clear the ego, clear the like survival mechanisms that most people don't, this Kundalini energy can rise. And as it does, it essentially breaks free any emotion or fear that you have stored in you to then feel again, process. But the goal of a Kundalini awakening is to raise your consciousness to, we'll say, like levels of spiritual awakening, so higher consciousness. And I had been doing Kundalini yoga for 4 years because it's been really helpful in recovery, but I didn't really understand what I was doing with it. I just understood it makes me feel better. It makes me feel more calm. I didn't really understand that I was raising Kundalini energy. And also before any of this, like before January, I didn't really understand what manifestation was. So like that's how fast this went for me.
Okay.
I didn't understand what I was doing.
And how did that show up? Like when you're like, I didn't understand it until this point, how did you know that you were understanding it in a completely different way?
Just the way that I like felt reality felt completely different, or like the way that I could see how people's internal world created their external world, or understanding the world in terms of like energetic frequencies. And that's how you can create the life you want. And then starting to put into practice some of those things myself and seeing immediate results, I was like, whoa, I've been in a game of like forcing everything my entire life. And that's not actually how any of this works. So I believe that my Kundalini energy was rising before Bali. I think it really started when if you Google Kundalini awakenings, a lot of times they start when you like are completely broken. And I think that that's really when things started for me, because I was feeling like between November and March of this year, I was crying like 4 or 5 times a day for no reason. Like it kind of became a joke in my friend group because we'd be at dinner and like everyone's laughing or having a great time. I'm having a great time. All of a sudden I'm crying. What is going on? It was like I was releasing like so much shit. And anyway, so then in Bali, I booked a Kundalini activation process. Very different. And in those sessions, the goal for most people is that when your Kundalini energy is activated, you can feel so much more creative, intuitive, feminine in your body. You feel really great. But for me, I believe that it forced a full Kundalini awakening. So you've done Kundalini also. So everybody has very different experiences. And I don't want you to talk about yours, but like, it was the most unhinged text I've ever gotten, by the way.
Just a casual text from me.
Yeah, I was like, oh boy.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Wow.
during it, I was like experiencing, like electricity and shaking at my arms. And by the way, no breath work, no psychedelics, nobody's touching me. We're just laying on the ground listening to music. And the practitioner is like tuning everybody to her frequency, essentially. And I started to feel electricity at my arms. I have like a lot of grief coming up. I had the Kundalini kind of like goddess feeling is the only way I can describe it. And then towards the end, I'm lying on the ground and it feels like those like hospital paddles. Somebody's like put them on my chest and I'm lying flat. And all of a sudden my chest is rising like 6 times, like off the ground, head on the ground. It was like I was having an exorcism. And at this point, I'm still logical, still not understanding energy work. And so I'm lying there and I think I was literally saying out loud, like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck is going on right now? And after that, I had a really dark feeling for about 24 hours. I still don't know if that was my energy or if it was somebody else's in the room. Not sure. And then I went back to her for grounding, like Reiki, because I felt really off, like really, really dark.
Which they say is common.
Is common.
Very.
Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe it was something I'd stored in me. Who knows? So I went to her the next day and I did grounding Reiki. And that's when the weird shit started. Like, none of that was that weird.
That's when it started.
That's when it started.
Okay.
So for like a week and a half, 2 weeks afterwards, about half the day, if not most of the day, and it gradually got better, I started to feel like I was completely out of my body. And a lot of people will describe this when they've taken psychedelics, where it's like I felt like my consciousness was out here and I was looking through my body at my hands, but they weren't my hands. Like I felt like fully like I was in a meat suit, like, but my consciousness was up here. And I didn't expect that. Nobody warned me about that because I had a full awakening and my consciousness essentially like ratcheted so high and my nervous system couldn't ground me back into my body. So it was terrifying.
Yeah. Like existential crisis.
Oh yeah. I was like not well.
Yeah.
Bali. Yeah.
And then how long did it take to recalibrate?
Like 2 weeks to feel a bit more normal again. But I would honestly say that it took a month or two because I was having a lot of anxiety. The feeling would come back.
Yeah.
So a month or two after that. And then after that, after my Kundalini awakening, the way that I experience and feel life is so different. And it's taken me a while to adapt to that. Just certain things will happen. My nervous system feels completely different. Like I feel like I have a new nervous system now. So there will be certain things that happen in life where I'm like, oh, I would have reacted way differently to that before. And now I'm like, don't care.
Yeah.
I'm like very regulated. And it's been like a little bit like jarring at times to feel like so present and so at peace. So.
Wow. And that's, I mean, to say that of like, I feel so present and so at peace, but that also feels so foreign to me.
So foreign.
So what have you done? And, we're going to get to how, obviously this was such an internal reckoning and, already cut to now today, like a lot of the externals have started to change and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But how has that been for you for someone that, it's this new thing that you now have to learn with? It's okay to be peaceful. It's okay to be at peace. It's okay. Like you are safe in your body, in your environment. How have you been able to recalibrate that for yourself?
Oh man, I don't know. Day by day, honestly, it's been an integration process and I expect that it will be, another year or so before I feel like fully used to the way that I feel now. But, honestly, it makes me very appreciative for how much I have grown because the fact, like you said, the fact that it feels so foreign, I was so dysregulated for most of my life.
You didn't know.
And I didn't know. I was just like, oh, this is how I experience reality. I constantly feel like I'm anxious and on edge and need to like control relationships and, the classic AA stuff. So yeah, it's been crazy. And it's also, I think, changed my relationships a lot in terms of just the people that I enjoy spending time with.
Yeah. I was going to ask you how your friendships have changed, if they have changed, and how they have certain people, energies, dynamics kind of left, have new people come in. Like, how are you showing up in relationship differently?
I think for me, it has been about attracting more new people than anything else. Like every new friend that I've made recently is like very much on the same sort of like frequency and like understanding of life and feeling of life. I think anybody that maybe isn't quite as like conscious, you want to say, it's sort of like you begin to just like compartmentalize people in a sense of like, this is my business friend, this is my relationship friend, this is my fun friend. But certainly, like, there's been a few people that I, were in my life in the past that I've hung out with more recently. And I'm like, oh no. But here's the thing, though, and I'm sure you can relate to this. It's like, you don't necessarily want to spend time with them, but also they don't want to spend time with you. Because that's really triggering for people that are not as aware. So it goes both ways. And it's just like a mutual distancing.
And how have you given yourself the permission to let that be okay? Because I think that for a lot of people, even though they may be aware of it, because it's so loud, we will suppress that, or we'll be like, well, that's fine. Like, I can shape this, I can fix it, I can make it okay. Yeah. How have you given yourself permission to be okay with knowing like this person may not have a place in my life anymore, and that's okay?
I think that's something in general that I've actually always been very good with in terms of people aren't meant to be around in your life forever. Like, I think I've had a harder time in romantic contexts with that idea.
Yeah.
But in terms of like female friends, and now I kind of feel the same way in romantic relationships where it's like people are not meant to be necessarily forever people. Sometimes it is, and that's amazing. But more often than not, it's people that you meet at different levels of your growth, and you're there to enjoy the ride for a little bit or not. But I think that we get into a lot of trouble when we're trying to cling on to people that are not meant to continue on with us.
That's good. And, when these people are now gone, it creates a space.
Yeah.
And it's going to create space for people, ideas, experiences to come in. And so have you been able to witness some of that and being able to see some of that now that you're shedding just the things that just don't serve you anymore because you've gone beyond that?
Absolutely. That's the other reason why it is helpful to know when people's role in your life has changed, because it's like in order to call in the things that you really want, the people you want, the relationships, the business opportunities, whatever, there has to be space for it. Like you have to not have one foot in your old reality and one foot in the new one. You really need to signal to the universe that like you're fully on board with this new kind of you in a sense. So,
and that goes kind of with like matching. Like you have to be an energetic match. I would love for you to share about that, because outside looking in, it would be so easy for someone to think, okay, Christina Galbato, she must have had it all figured out because she had the career, she had the followers, she had the money, she had, whatever, the house, the this, the that, whatever they make up and tell themselves.
Totally.
And so there had to have been something that you were a match for in order to amass all of that.
Yeah.
But what would you say is maybe different about what you are now a match for?
Yeah.
That you maybe weren't
That's
before?
like the most interesting thing is I was talking to a friend about this in February, and she's like, how did you have such incredible business success without knowing what manifestation was? I was like, I actually don't. It's because I do have, in a business context, I have an unwavering belief in my abilities that I think I've just like stacked with proof. But what's interesting is that a lot of my drive used to come from a place of proving, of like, I'm not enough. Finally, the house I own, the money I earn, the followers I have, the press I have, finally you'll see that I'm enough. Like whoever you is, just like anybody.
Right.
It was from a place of lack, a place of fear, a place of proving. And what's been really destabilizing for me is that drive is kind of gone. And so I'm like, where does my drive come from now? And for me now, it is a larger purpose. And so before, my courses were very like strategy focused and very like completely missing the mindset aspect of any of this. And I didn't understand it at all before. But now it's really helping women on a deeper level with like subconscious work, nervous system work, like understanding the universal energetics and how to use that to speed up what they want, combined with aligned strategy, because I'm good at both.
Right.
I don't know if that answered your question.
No,
but
it
it's
does.
sort of, yeah.
And I mean, I know that you've got some things coming in the pipeline, so
Yeah.
which is exciting.
Yeah.
But from what you've been able to experience so far, how has that shift been received? Have some people loved it? Have some people said, I've been waiting for this? Have some people hated it? Like, because just that in and of itself takes so much courage. And we've talked about that. I mean, even earlier this year, you gave me the inspiration to publicly shut down a program that I had not been actively selling in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I haven't, but we haven't talked. And you're like,
Shut it down.
yeah, you're like, I really think that you should publicly shut it down and like make a declaration and like it will be good for all these different things.
Yeah.
And I did, and you were so right.
Mm-hmm.
So how has that been that for you to have the courage to do that? And then how has that been received, at least from the community that you have spent so many years cultivating thus far?
I think the courage, well, so I kind of did it before when I went from being a travel blogger to more like social media education.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done it before. And I think that showed me that I can do this. And the beauty of having a personal brand is that people are not just interested in like the value you're sharing and what you're posting, like they're really there for you. And so I do have a confidence that no matter what, within reason, no matter what direction I go in, my audience will follow me.
Right.
And realizing too that my audience is growing also. People forget that. They think that their audience is like frozen in time when they first started. And it's like, my audience wants to hear about this stuff from me now.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave me the courage. And also the fact that like I just literally could not physically stay in that space anymore.
Yeah.
Like the thought of posting a reel of like 3 tips to grow to 10K followers makes me ill.
Right.
Like
literally
physically,
vomiting.
I want to throw up.
Yep.
So that, but it's been really, really well received, like really, really well received. And I'm so grateful for my community just in general for all of the support. And I think people are like, I've gotten a few messages, people being like, I could tell, you were out of it. I could tell your energy wasn't in it anymore. And this feels like you. And I think having that feedback has been really validating. But it's like, not so much anymore, but a couple months ago, I did struggle with like, I had an idea for a new program that I wanted to create.
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel myself sabotaging and procrastinating and putting it off. And I'm like, it's not that you can't focus. It's not that you're procrastinating. It's not that you're being a perfectionist. And I realized the fear was like, if I launched something new that felt so representative of me and my soul and it was rejected,
oof,
like shit. What does that mean?
What does that mean about me?
Yeah. What does that mean about me? What does that mean now? Is it the wrong answer? Like all of these things. And so now I've kind of gotten past that mindset block, and I'm excited to launch something soon.
Because it doesn't mean anything about you, because it is your soul's purpose. So it can only mean for the highest good of you and for all.
Exactly.
Period.
It will work. Period.
Yes. And one of the things that I'm just so proud of and I'm excited about is with this idea of seeing more of you. You showing up, you're doing more public speaking, which I know you've talked about has been something that you've always been afraid of, but you're also so good at the same time, which is always really, funny how that works.
I know.
And the connected table that you do with a friend of yours that I think started out as just this very easy, natural thing and has now grown into something so beautiful. I can't wait to go to one of them in the future.
I know.
But share a little bit about that and how that has felt so aligned for you. Just those two things. And I mean, I can just tell from what I do know of you and your journey, those two things feel so authentic and so real with where you are today and where you're going.
Thank you. Yeah. I think the connected table. So, I mean, overall, one of the shifts that I felt within myself with having evergreen courses is that I was very disconnected from my customer. It's a great financial position to be in, to be like 24/7 passive income.
Yep.
But I had no sense of community whatsoever. And so when I was writing down a lot of my like values and focuses in this next season, community and connection was like top number one thing that I wanted to do. And also the tie-in with public speaking is that I know with recovery and what I've been through, I have a really good story. And I think that I am not using it as much to change people's lives as much as I should be. And I know public speaking or things like a book eventually or podcasts are like that platform that I need to use. And my fear of being like seen in terms of I could mess up speaking, I could look bad, I could whatever, like that was very much holding me back. So that's where the public speaking thing came from. But the connected table was really, I was in Cape Town with my friend Charmaine, and we were living in a house with like 10 other entrepreneurs. And we were like, this is the best ever. Like I just feel so inspired by the people around me. So we wanted to continue that when we got back. So we started hosting these dinners with like 20, 25 women, different cities, typically like founders, entrepreneurs, VC, authors, just any female powerhouse within their own space. And it's been really, really rewarding to see like how many different connections are made between people at the table and how many incredible women we're meeting. And, we're trying to bring in sponsors and see what we can do with it. But honestly, it's just been like a fun little venture. So.
And I think it's been so well received because it feels so natural.
Yeah, I think so.
The other thing that I think is something to touch on, because again, whether you realize it or not, I think it's a reminder to people that you can begin again, you can reinvent, is your podcast. Yeah. So I know that you used to have a podcast.
Yeah.
And then you stopped doing that version of the podcast. And then this year you launched a new podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to have a podcast that was, not surprisingly, very business focused. And I shut that down. I think I stopped doing it like 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. And again, with the podcast, it's wanting to have conversations, connection, learn from people. That's something I realized I wasn't doing a lot, was like learning new things. And then also getting better at speaking in general. So I was like, okay, I need to push myself to do this. And it's called She's WELLthy. So WELL, WELLthy, little play on words. And inspiration really came for it from this idea of living well inside out, because I've realized for a lot of my life experiencing addiction and recovery and now, all these different spiritual things, is that I spend a lot of my life, and most people spend their lives trying to live outside in. So like, in other words, painting the picture of their life to be perfect and surrounding themselves with people that make them look good or earning a certain amount of money, and just hoping that those external things will soak in and make them happy, when really it's about making your internal world aligned, calm, present, joy within yourself, so that no matter what happens outside of you, you still remain in that state. So that was like the mission of it. But we're bringing on, like experts in spirituality, heart-led founders, founders with like a purpose besides I wanted to make a ton of money, which is hard to find. I'm just kidding. Wellness people. So it's been really fun.
Yeah. And I've loved just to see you again, like just show up that way and giving yourself the permission to do that. Another thing that I would love to touch on is romantic partnerships.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I am Virgin Mary.
You have been,
legitimately though.
You've been through some relationships, but I feel like your next one, when it comes, is going to be very different.
Agreed.
So why do you agree? And how do you think that's going to be, just based on the vast amount of spiritual and emotional growth that you have done over the last year and a half?
Yeah. To be honest, I look back at how broken I was after that breakup, and I'm so glad I was as broken as I was, because if I wasn't, I would have like jumped back into dating and found somebody new. But this time of like, I've met men here and there over the last 9 months. It's like, it just happens. But I haven't dated at all. Like, I've been very intentionally single for the last 9 months. Yeah, since November. And it's been the biggest blessing of all time, because I realized I was like, I haven't really been single since I was like 16. Like, I've always had like somebody I'm interested in.
Right.
I was like, I'm not looking for anybody's like on my story. Like, this is great. Like, I'm single. So it's been challenging in the sense of like, it's nice to have a person sometimes, but like my life is so full in terms of like my purpose. I finally feel so excited about what I'm building. I feel so full with like my friendships, my home where I live. Like, my life is amazing. And I've raised my consciousness so much in a way where I'm like, I would never, ever find myself in any of my past relationships at this point. Like, just thinking about how they started or early behaviors, it just wouldn't be a thing. And also, I think it's really important when you get out of relationships to not just be like, what did the other person do wrong, but to look at your own pattern. And for me, the consistent pattern was just like self-abandonment, shape-shifting, over-giving, and just not having needs, which is insane. And so there's a lot there, but I believe that my next partner will be, if not the husband, somebody really important and much more aligned.
What would you say is a non-negotiable that you now have in any aspect of your life?
Oh, in any aspect.
That you didn't 12 months ago?
I think this is so cliche, but honestly, peace. Because the thing is that I'm like so peaceful and regulated with myself, and I'm very sensitive to energy now.
Mm-hmm.
And so any like situation, person, dynamic that starts to make me feel chaotic, I'm like, nope. But before it was kind of a match for my nervous system.
Oh, interesting.
You know?
Yep.
So now I'm very calm, very at peace, very present. And so I think anybody that kind of disrupts that, like there's always, gray areas in terms of like dynamics, but essentially peace.
Peace is a good one. And then for what's to come. So this episode will drop fall 2025. What should we expect to see from you, from your soul, from your light as we go into the rest of this year and next year?
What I'll say, and I'm still kind of like, it's this new chapter of like sitting in the void and being comfortable not having an elevator pitch. But what I'll say is that I'm very passionate, like I said, about subconscious work, very passionate about nervous system work, about universal laws and using energetics, and about aligned strategy. So it will be some sort of mishmash of that. Definitely online programs, definitely live programs, definitely retreats.
Yes.
And we'll say like other ventures outside of the online world that feel aligned.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm so excited. Okay, before we wrap up, what does being a woman of influence mean to you and your life in this year, 2025?
What does being a woman of influence mean? Being a woman of influence to me at this stage of my life means using not only impacting people with the value and the knowledge that you have to offer, but also transmuting your pain and darkness and what you've been through in life to help people at a wider scale. And like kind of, alchemizing that pain into love and into a story that can help other people, because I think that's where the most beauty happens, is when we're honest about what we've been through and the pain that we've experienced, and how we heal that pain is by helping others.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, thank you so much for being here.
Dude, thank you so much.
It's been so amazing. And again, it's just one of my biggest intentions with the rebrand of my podcast was that I was starting to feel very bored and very itchy with kind of the complacency of what I was doing. And I knew that the gift of that was showing me that it was time to just expand and just express in a new way. But at the same time, it didn't feel like a new way. It was a new way outwardly, but I knew in that moment, I was like, I just need to start having the conversations that I'm truly actually having with people in my life. I need to bring that more to the forefront.
100%.
And that is really has been the intention of this entire rebrand and rename. And so that's when I knew that I wanted to have you on, because we've been able to tap in and tune in, and you've been there for me. And I hope that I've been able to be there for you just through the growth and the evolution. And I think that is the most important piece to growth, is really finding those other women that see you. They don't try to fix you. They don't try to control you. They don't try to change you, but they just see you, all of you, and want to help you expand that out. So thank you for being one of those for me, and just for sharing your gifts today. And
thank you so much. You're such an expander for me. And also I feel like as I've gone through this journey of like discovering myself and being broken and then being on the up and up, you've just been such a affirming light for me of who I am. And so you've been a huge part of my healing journey as well. So thank you. And this feels like one of our audio notes.
I know, exactly. And that was the intention. I was like, I need to bring this to life, and I need the people that I know that can hold that and witness that. So thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you.
Right, my friend.